Hello everyone, forgive me if I go a little fast in this video, but there's a long process, so I want to make sure we fit everything in. We are going to take our exploration of the pen tool and you are going to make a vector-based drawing of an image that you find on the internet. So I've been in a Star Wars mood lately, so I did this picture of Jabba the Hutt. Let me go ahead and open the picture that I saved. So find your picture on the internet, save it to a folder that you make in your home drive. I made a pen tool tracing folder. This is my original image. So I took this picture of Jabba the Hutt and I traced it using the pen tool and the pencil tool, actually one of the last steps that I'll show you, to make that illustration. So if you open your image and the artboard doesn't seem like it's lined up right, click on your artboard tool and you can resize the artboard so it seems like it matches up better. Go ahead and finish this. And there we go. Click off of your artboard tool, and I'm going to go ahead and Control+ to zoom in. Hold down my space bar, click, and I can move down. That's a little too much, so I'm going to zoom out once. Control-. So this was my final picture, and this was the file that I was working on. So as you can see, my picture is behind my created image, and I have the opacity very light, so you can be able to see through it. These are color swatches that I use to take color from the original picture and fill in the color in here. So what I'm going to do is, on this picture, I'm going to create a new layer. Now, I don't want to have all of my layers just numbered, so if you double click on a layer, you can rename it. So I'm going to change this to original since it's my original picture. And on my original layer, whatever picture you opened, you need to dim it to 50%. So when you click on that checkbox and hit OK, your picture will be very light opacity. On layer 2, I can start to use my pen tool and actually trace out this image. So I already took my pen tool box and dragged it out here. So I can select my pen tool right here. And now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Hold down my space bar, and I'm going to start clicking anchor points around Jabba here. And if this happens to you where your color fill starts to come through, go ahead and click down here where the line is going through the white box to have none as your fill, and that will help you out. So I'm clicking through and I'm lining up some anchor points. I'm not changing them yet. I'm going to use the convert anchor point later, but right now I'm just kind of finding all the points on the outside of him that I can make. Hold down my space bar and move over. So as I finish up my line, I'm going to hold down my space bar and move over and go and close off my shape. Now I can take my Convert Anchor Point tool, start dragging out my anchors, and I can start converting my rounded shapes here. So as you do this, remember, if you mess up, you can always click back on your Direct Selection tool, click on that anchor, and then move your handles over back and forth to fix these up. Now, since I was talking about earlier that I need to save time, I'm actually going to pause the video while I'm doing these anchors so I can show you the final step. But again, if you select the anchor, click on the point, drag out your handles, and then you can fix them by dragging them around and changing the curve of your piece. So while I am going through and doing all of these pieces, you'll see the end result. If that happens, click OK. I'm going to pause it right now. Okay, here are all my anchor points of my first tracing of Jabba the Hutt here. Two things I did want to show you. If you are trying to curve your points and it's just not working out, don't forget that you have the Delete Anchor Point tool or the Add Anchor Point tool. Say I needed another point here because that curve just wasn't coming in. I can select my Add Anchor Point, put that in, grab my Convert Anchor Point tool, and then I can add that in. Now, say I didn't need it, select your Delete Anchor Point tool and go back and go ahead and delete that part. Now, I do need to adjust these anchors again and get that curve back. Okay, so this is good enough for me for right now. To save myself some confusion later, I'm going to add a new layer for every other part. For his mouth, his tongue, his nostrils, and his eyes, I'm going to add a new layer and trace those sections. Now, I didn't name this one, so again, double click and you can change the name. This was Outline. I'm going to hit OK. So I'm going to add a new layer, and now I'm going to take my pen tool and I'm going to make some anchors over his mouth here. I'm going to get inside each part of his lip, get up to the top here, right in the center, and down. For the nostrils, I'm going to add a new layer. Take my pen tool. There's one. And I'm going to click off onto my selection tool, then click back on my pen tool so I can make the other nostril, otherwise they would merge together. And now I'm going to click the new layer button again, and I'm going to do his eyes. So for his eyes, I'm going to do a little bit of a diamond shape so I can get the curves on the top and bottom. And this one's kind of half closed, so before I do that, again, I'm going to click on my arrow, click back on my pen tool, and then I will get these ones. This one's kind of half closed, so I'm just going to do 3 points on the bottom and then close it off on the top. So there's my eyes, my nostrils, and my mouth. I didn't name these, so I'm going to go back and name them. So layer 3 was the mouth, layer 4 was the nostrils, and layer 5 was the eyes. And I just realized that I forgot his tongue, so let me add one more layer. Double click, and I'm going to name that tongue. And I'm going to go through and take my pen tool and go ahead and make some points over his tongue here. So don't worry about the tongue being in front of the mouth, because when everything is done, they're going to overlap, and I do need to adjust these angles. So right now I'm going to take my Convert Anchor Point tool, I'm going to zoom in, Control+, and I'm going to try to curve these lines around the tongue. Pull them out, use my anchors, and I'm going to do this with everything that I just traced. Now, in Photoshop, you had to select every layer. If I just click on one of these points, and I click on the anchor, it will automatically go to that layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on these and move them out. Now, again, I'm trying to save time here, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while I do this so you can just see the end result. Okay, here's the end result of me taking the Anchor Point tool and changing all of my curves. Don't forget, you can take your Direct Selection tool, click on any given part or any given anchor, and redo your handles that way as well. Go ahead and readjust that. Alright, so let me zoom out and you can see this. So far I have all of my outline and all of my shapes outlined as well with the pen tool. So what I need to do now is I'm going to start filling in some color into these areas. If you saw on my original picture, I had these color swatches here. So what I did was I went back to my original picture. So I clicked on my original picture, and I'm going to double click and take off the dim image to 50%. So when I click OK, all of my original colors come back. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangle tool, I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to make about 5 or 6 rectangles over here to use as my color swatches. So that's 5 and 6. Now I can take my selection tool, select one of my rectangles, take my eyedropper, and when I select a color out of here, it will fill the box with that color. I don't like that color. I'm going to use this color, I think, for his skin. So now I need to select my selection tool again, click on the next box, go to my eyedropper. I'm going to use this color for his eyes. Select my arrow again. I'm going to use this color for the inside of the mouth and the nostrils. Select my tool again, select the next box, eyedropper. I'm going to select this color for his, ooh, that doesn't look good. I'll use that one for his tongue. And let's see, what else do I need? Let me go ahead and, so I'm going to take my eyedropper on this last box and I'm going to get a secondary skin color. I might not use this color, but we'll see if I get to that step. And that looks good. Okay, so now what I need to do is I'm going to fill in each of these shapes with these colors. So I'm going to start with the tongue. If I take my selection tool and click on the tongue, now I take my eyedropper and take that tongue color, it will fill in the whole shape. If I click off of it, you can see that there's no line around it. So if I want to add that black line, I need to click on the shape again, go to the stroke points, and select a point. The higher the point, the thicker the line is. So I'm going to keep it kind of small. Now I need to go through and select each one of these shapes, take my eyedropper, and then select the necessary color. So this was the color that I used for the inside of the mouth, and I'm also going to use those colors for the nostrils too. Again, if you want those black lines around the outside of the shape, then you need to go to the stroke drop-down menu and change that. So let me go ahead and change that. I'm going to put them at 0.75. So it's not a thick line, but it's enough of a line to show you where the shapes are. So the last ones are the eyes. Click on the eye, get the eyedropper. There's the first eye, and click on my selection tool again. Click the second eye, and do the eyedropper one more time. So let me go ahead and add the stroke line to that eye and the other eye. So now you can see those shapes. So the last color that I have to fill in is his whole body color. So let me go ahead and take my selection tool, click on the outside path, take my eyedropper, and this was the main skin color that I used. And now when I make this one, I'll do this one at 1 point. So now you can see all of the lines that I did here. So I just realized that I didn't do the insides of his eyes. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool, and I'm going to make some small ovals inside his eyes. And I'm going to adjust the sizes and rotate them with my selection tool. So if I come over to my corner, I can rotate, click and hold, and move it around. And that needs to be a little bit smaller. That looks like it fits. And now for this one, rotate it, drag it a little bit closer to the center. And that one needs to be just a little bit bigger, I think. So now I'm going to change the color. So instead of using my eyedropper this time, I'm going to click on the actual fill box, and I can select what color I want. So there's that eye, and now if I want to, when I click on this one, I can use the eyedropper from here to fill in that color. I don't like the size of the stroke on these, so I'm going to take it down to maybe like 0.25, since the eyes shouldn't be that big. To add that line in the middle of his eye, I'm going to take my pen tool and I'm going to draw a line from the top to the bottom of the eye. And then I'm going to take my selection tool, click on the line, change the stroke point to about 3. And now I'm going to change the width profile to this pointed edges. So when I click off, it's going to look like that. So let me go ahead and do the other eye, pen tool, make a line. Click on my selection tool, change the point to 3, and then change the profile to the pointed lines. That one doesn't look as long, so I'm just going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. And there we go. So it doesn't look like I'm going to have time to show you how I did this outside secondary green skin color, but I can show you how I did these detail lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a new layer, and I'm going to call it details. So this is my new layer, double click, and I'm going to call this details. I use the pencil tool for this, but you can use whichever one you want. I'm going to leave this layer active, but I'm going to click all of the visible buttons off for all of them except for my original. I'm going to take my pencil tool, because I can do this freehand using the pencil tool by clicking and holding and dragging out a line. Now, Illustrator will smooth this line out a little bit, but it's not going to be perfect. So I can come in and I can create all of these detail lines by just dragging over. And I'm going to make one for his little arm here, and I think I missed that one. I'm going to make this connecting line for his mouth, make his chin line here, make this little detail line for his mouth, and I'm going to get some around his eyes too. So you can always come back in with the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow, and you can adjust these points, but I'm just quickly showing you how to do it for this tutorial since I'm running out of time. And when I make all these layers active again, I will see these detail lines. So now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and click on my visibilities, and there's all of my detail lines. So I can select my selection tool, and I can get rid of the background by clicking on it and deleting it, and I can click on and delete all of my color swatches. Since I'm finished, I'm going to go to File, Export, make sure my Save As type is a JPEG, name it something I will recognize, and save it into whatever folder you made for today. So your assignment is to find an image that you would like to trace using the pen tool, and save it as JPEG and submit it to Google Classroom.